and it's warm in here, and I'm praising God for that. It does not feel like South Florida outside. But we are in our third week now in a sermon series called Inside Out, how emotions limit or liberate spiritual growth. You may recall having seen that movie, that Pixar, Disney animated movie, and those different emotions that vie for control of the individuals in the movie, and that is exactly what happens to you and me. We're looking at how it is that we control that aspect of who we are, who God created us to be, and not let ourselves be controlled, be hijacked, held hostage to our emotions. God is an emotional being. God created our emotions, and they are to be made as whole as God wants our hearts, our souls, our bodies to be made whole. And so we're looking at this idea as an imperative for growing spiritually. We begin to talk about emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is really broken into two different aspects, and this is part of the way God designed us. Emotional intelligence has to do with our own self-awareness, which allows us to manage ourselves so that we're not just reacting all over the place. You've run into people, no doubt, who are like that. They just can't control themselves. They react all over the place. They're not able to manage themselves, and that impacts all their relationships. And the other side is the social awareness and managing relationships well. Every relationship that matters to you comes down to whether or not you do this well. The quality of those relationships, the duration of those relationships, the brokenness in those relationships comes down to whether you and I have enough self-awareness that we manage ourselves internally well, the brokenness, the deep places in us, and the way we interact with others' feelings and needs and how we manage with them, the impact we have on them. It's all connected. That's why I love Travis Bradberry's definition that we'll share with you. Emotional intelligence, he says, is your ability to recognize and understand emotions in yourself and others, and your ability to use this awareness to manage your behavior and relationships. Everybody who matters to you wants this from you and wants it for you. So what's the problem? Often we just don't know how to get there. That's why we're talking about it. We just don't often know those little things that trip us up, and becoming aware of them helps us. We don't often have the little tools that can make a difference that we can put into practice, and that's what we're going to talk about today. So there are going to be some noteworthy things I hope for you today. The idea is this: keen self-awareness always improves your awareness of others. You know what awareness of others is? It's empathy. So last week, we talked about self-awareness. Today, we're moving outward toward other awareness and this idea of empathy. Remember last week, and I'll mention this again because a lot of people said this was helpful, the image of self-awareness, looking at our own emotions and feelings like we look at cars on the road around us. When we're looking out the window at cars on the road around us, what are you doing? You're assessing intuitively, right? Are they staying in their lane? Are they speeding? Are they reckless? Are they safe? Are they slow? Are they fast? And we respond, hopefully, accordingly in a healthy way. I mean, if someone's being reckless and aggressive, you might move over. You might slow down. You might go another direction. What if we looked at our feelings and emotions that way? What if we were to objectively view them that way and to respond knowingly? That's not good. That's not good for me. I need to slow down. I need to go another direction. I need to take a time out and see it for what it is. It's objectifying it. And so it's this idea of looking at those emotions, becoming self-aware in order to improve being sensitive to others around us. They are connected. Let me give you an illustration of a scenario and how it's done well and how it's not done well. True story. But imagine yourself there. You're in a subway car in New York City. It's a crowded subway car, kind of typical, just like that. But there's a man who is by himself with 3 children. He's looking kind of sullen, quiet. His kids are acting out. They're going nuts. They're going bananas. They're hanging from the rafters. They're yelling. They're shouting. And it's, it's a public place, and it's becoming a little annoying to some people. And they're kind of watching, and this is not stopping. And people are starting to think, you know what you'd start to think, is anybody going to say anything to the guy? Is anyone going to reprimand the kids? Is anyone going to step in? And then finally one guy steps up. Sir, do you realize what your kids are doing? He responds, yeah. I just don't know what to do. You see, we just left the hospital where their mother, my wife, died. Now, who was that guy focused on? Whose emotions, whose feelings? He was focused on the bad behavior of the kids. And so he was getting hijacked by his being offended. When there was the man sitting there who was giving obvious cues that there's something deeper here that's going on, that he's been emotionally disabled. But that was missed. That was missed. And so we have to speak to ourselves and ask, why is it that I'm drawn to responding and reacting to that behavior, but not noticing that behavior? That's the difference in our emotional intelligence. And it dictates the quality of our interaction with others, how we perceive others, and how our relationships grow or not. See, managing your own emotions allows you to be more empathetic. The idea of reading and responding to others' feelings. Remember, empathy and self-awareness are symbiotic. That is, they feed off one another. They go together. They're twins that are birthed together. And that's why I love the father of emotional intelligence, Daniel Goleman, put it this way. He said, empathy builds on self-awareness. The more open we are to our own emotions, the more skilled we will be at reading feelings. And this is the key to quality relationships. The key to seeing ourselves rightly and relating to others rightly. It's a corollary. Healthy self-awareness leads to healthy other awareness or empathy. Now, here's the million-dollar question. Why is this so stinking hard for us? Why is this such a stumbling block? I mean, all of this, every relationship that's broken in your life, every relationship that's difficult in your life goes back to the inability or the ability to do these two things. It's just two things. Well, self-awareness, other awareness. And there are a lot of answers to that, but I want to suggest that we're often so consumed with ourselves and with how we appear to other people that we're not even aware of their emotions and reading their feelings very well. Illustration, you've all done this, so just admit it. You walk up and you meet someone for the first time, they share their name, you share your name as you're shaking hands. 1.3 seconds later, you forgot their name. Why? Because you weren't focused on them, you're focused on communicating yourself to them. It's an insidious thing. We're regularly focused on ourselves in opposition to others, even our status. There was a very interesting survey that was done at Harvard University. Now think about that. Harvard students are bright cookies. I mean, these are not dumb kids, right? And they were given this survey and they were asked two questions. Choose one of two. Very simple. And here it is. Would you rather earn $50,000 when everyone else makes $25,000 or earn $100,000 when everyone else makes $200,000? Now do the math. It's sort of a no-brainer if you do the math in terms of your own self-interest. Now these are Harvard University kids. Which one do you think the preponderance of them chose? Number one. They chose number one. It's this idea that no one else can be ahead of me. We're so self-focused. We have an unhealthy preoccupation with ourselves that does not promote healthy self-awareness and therefore healthy other awareness. We live in an age, there's a word that we use today that didn't exist when I was a kid. Selfies. We live in an age of selfies. When I was growing up, the camera only focused out one direction. You couldn't turn it around and take it. It just didn't make sense to turn it around and take a picture of yourself. We get on social media, and what we see people do is reacting and they live their lives on social media. It's all about self. It's an indicator of the ability or inability to be self-aware and aware of others. So, how do we face this? There are two keys I want to suggest to unlocking empathy. And the first one is simply knowing that you have a choice. Empathy is a choice you make. We talked a couple weeks ago about how your intellect you're stuck with. Sorry. Your IQ, it's done. It is what it is. But your EQ, your emotional quotient, can grow. We have potential. This is God's gift to us. So we're going to talk about number one in a practical way at the end of the sermon. I'm going to give you 4 practical things that you can do to grow, to improve, to make that choice and become someone different than you are today, to benefit yourself and others. But the second part is equally important, if not more. God created you to benefit from empathy. This is the motivational, the inspirational part of this. Sometimes we have to, if you go on a diet, if you're going to get into an exercise program, you got to kind of see someone who kind of shows you what, this is the benefit, this is what can happen, this is how you'll feel, this is how you'll look, whatever, right? So here's some of the benefits. A couple of examples. Imagine a construction company. Construction workers, burly dudes, right? And they're rough, they're gruff, they're tough and proud of it. Well, this is a true story. A construction company hired a social scientist firm to come in and administer personality test indicators and to help them with some of the soft people skills like empathy. The first thing they did was they gave them a personality indicator test. And predictably, all these burly construction workers scored really high on the assertiveness trait, but really low on empathy. They realized that even improving a little bit in empathy would actually improve the quality and the productivity of the work and therefore the bottom line of business, much less the relationships. And so they instructed this firm that they hired to teach these men empathy. They gave them homework to go home with. They said, when you go home, and your wife comes in and she says, you say, how was your day? And she says, oh my gosh, this happened and that happened. What is your typical response? Well, I just tell her what she should have done different. I try to fix it. Yeah, that's the problem. So instead of doing that, they said, tell her, that must have been really hard. That must have been difficult for you. That must have really made you sad or glad or mad or whatever, and empathize. And so these guys began going home and putting these skills to practice and trying to kind of get into their wives' shoes in their lives and reflect their feelings. One guy comes back and he tells this social scientist, this empathy stuff is really good. My love life has not been so good for 10 years. It improves marriages. It improves relationships. Let me give you another example. True story. This is in a university classroom. The professor is lecturing and students are sitting before him. And the students are in together on an experiment that the professor is unaware of. And this guy, he's known for being a kind of monotone, boring professor. And he has his face in his notes and he's going like this. And it's just a yawner like so. And the students, they gather in the room and they're all slouching. They're kind of looking away. They're uninterested. They're not engaged. They're sort of like this. And he just kind of goes on. But then on cue, they all sit up. They lean forward. They lock eyes and they're attentive. They're engaged. And you know what happened with the professor? He left his notes. He made eye contact with them. He became more animated. He became more energized. There was an electricity in the room, and it completely changed the atmosphere. And then on cue again, the students went right back to slouching and being unengaged and looking away. And guess what happened to the professor? Back to his notes with his face in his page and monotone like this. The quality of learning, the quality of education differs greatly by attentiveness, by empathy. My kids, here's another illustration. My kids make fun of me for this. We go out to eat, and I will call the waiter or waitress by name, usually at least 3 times, because it's almost guaranteed that by looking at them in the eye and calling them by name, we will get better service. Try it. Why? Why is that the case? It's not a gimmick or anything like that. It's because people, they're used to being abused all day long, serving people, feeling like slaves. And when they get attention, when someone looks at them and respects them and gives them human dignity and calls them by their name, they're often wearing their name tag, right? Makes it easy. They respond well, and you get better service. It's a win-win. Let me give you another illustration. Studies have been shown that when you speak, like I'm doing right now, your blood pressure rises. When you listen attentively to others, your blood pressure goes down. It has been proven that growing in your ability to attentively listen to others lowers your blood pressure and improves your cardiovascular system. So I could go on with examples, but just consider these 4 examples. This idea, the benefits of empathy, improve your marital satisfaction, your relationships, and your productivity on the job. It improves your education and your learning experience. It's better service when you go out to eat, and you have a healthier cardiovascular system. All this adds up to what God has done by creating us for this, guys. That's why we're talking about this. God designed you and me to mutually benefit from healthy empathy. It goes both ways. It's not just one way. But there's a warning, because when we look at Jesus and what he does with everyone he interacts with, he has one particular group that often does not get this. And you know who they are? The religious people. Yeah. The Pharisees, the scribes, the religious people, because they feel like they just got it down. They check the box and they're in the club. And so here's an illustration in Matthew chapter 23, verse 23. It's part of what we call the woes, the 7 woes. And Jesus is kind of nailing the Pharisees. And here he starts out really strong. Woe to you, teachers of the law and Pharisees, you hypocrites. You give 1/10 of your spices, mint, dill, and cumin, but you've neglected the more important matters of the law, justice, mercy, and faithfulness. You should have practiced the latter without neglecting the former. Now what's going on here? They're giving 1/10 of their spices, which in those days they would have had very, very small amounts in the first place, so it was a minuscule amount. But they're giving it to make themselves feel good, to make themselves look good. It has nothing to do with care for someone else, empathy for someone else, compassion for someone else. And Jesus is saying, that's still good. That's a good thing to tithe. It's a good thing to give 1/10. But you're doing that and neglecting what God cares most about, what's more important, and that is justice and mercy and faithfulness. Justice and mercy and faithfulness. What God cares most about has to do with impacting others, doesn't it? You don't have justice without someone else. You don't have mercy without someone to be merciful. You don't have faithfulness without someone to receive that faithfulness, do you? It's all done in relationship to others. So giving 1/10, giving a tithe, this was kind of the Jewish law, and Jesus is saying, keep doing it, that's good, but don't stop there. Because justice and mercy and faithfulness are God's relationship laws, and they're eternal for all of us. God created you and me, in other words, for healthy relationships with ourselves, with others, and with God. That's the law of relationships. That's where justice and mercy and faithfulness come in. The religious leaders and the Pharisees, you see, they obeyed the details of the religious law, but they disregarded the details of relationships. And that's what God cares most about. That's what God cares most about. This idea of justice and mercy and faithfulness was echoed earlier in Micah. We perhaps are familiar with Micah chapter 6, verse 8. It's a famous verse, and it goes like this in the Old Testament. Micah 6:8. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Now this is a text that was before Jesus. And he's saying, you've been shown, people. You've been shown. Now, we sit here after Jesus. We have really, truly been shown, haven't we? God decided to put on flesh and to come and live this human life, not just to tell us, not just to write it down, but to show us how to do it. We have truly been shown. So let me illustrate a couple of ways in which Jesus shows us. Doesn't just teach us, but shows us. We go to John chapter 5. Jesus is interacting with a guy who has been paralyzed. He is a paraplegic or quadriplegic for 38 years. He's laying beside a pool called the Pool of Siloam. And it was thought that if you were the first one into that pool when the waters were stirred by a spring bubbling up, you would be healed. He could never get put in that pool fast enough. 38 years. Jesus comes up to him, finds him there, and this is the way John records it in chapter 5. Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me get into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me. Then Jesus, he just skips the whole pool idea altogether. He says, get up, pick up your mat and walk. Enough of this waiting around for 38 years. Forget the pool. Pick it up and go, buddy. At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and he walked. And all the crowd cheered, and you could hear the fanfare, and everything was incredible. Not so fast. The day on which this took place was a Sabbath day, and that should be a big clue about what's to come. And so the Jewish leaders said to the man who had been healed, it is the Sabbath. The law forbids you to carry your mat. Now, stop there and check out what's going on emotionally. They should be overjoyed for this guy. Imagine, 38 years, you never had the option to pick up your mat. You couldn't walk. And now he's carrying his mat, and because carrying a mat is work, and work was forbidden on the Sabbath day, what are they focused on? What are they focused on? They're focused on the kids in the subway and not the Father. Are you with me? And so Jesus, he's showing us what our focus needs to be. People, relationships, love, joy, redemption, not the law, not religion. And it's a warning for us, isn't it? Well, it happens again and again. You go to Matthew chapter 12, and Jesus is with his disciples, and they're hungry. They're walking through a cornfield. Now, remember, they don't have Publix and Winn-Dixie and 7-Eleven on every corner. It's hard to come by food in those days, and they're hungry. Jesus cares about people. They pick some corn, and here's how it's recorded in Matthew chapter 12. At that time, Jesus went through the grain fields on the Sabbath. Dun, 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 dun. You know what's coming. His disciples were hungry and began to pick some heads of grain and eat them. When the Pharisees saw this, they said to him, look, your disciples are doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath. We don't care about them. We don't care about their bellies. We don't care about how they're feeling. This is the law. This is the religious thing to do and to not do. And then you go a little bit later in that chapter, and you go back to a guy who's lame. He has a crippled hand. And Matthew records the same kind of scenario. Going on from that place, it says he went into their synagogue, and a man with a shriveled hand was there. Looking for a reason to bring charges against Jesus, they asked him, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? They're trying to stop Jesus before he even does it this time. I mean, these guys really don't get it. And Jesus said to them, if any of you has a sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will you not take hold of it and lift it out? How much more valuable is a person than a sheep? Get your priorities straight. Therefore, it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. I mean, Jesus is running in, he's showing us the way. Are you with me? He's showing us in how he relates to people what God cares most about. The Pharisees, the religious people they looked at the same guy, same diseased, paralyzed, withered, hungry people, but they didn't see the same people as Jesus, did they? They looked at them differently. That's our challenge, and that's our opportunity, to see people like Jesus, to see ourselves, first of all, like Jesus sees us, and then to see others. You see, when you feel good about your life, and that is a good thing, God wants you to feel good about your life, but listen to this caveat. When you feel good about your life without considering how your life impacts others, you become easily emotionally handicapped. And apathy replaces empathy. And you become deaf and blind to what matters most to God. That's the warning that Jesus is showing us. Let me give you another illustration of how this worked out with a Jewish legend in history. This was a very interesting story about Rabbi Joshua ben Levi. Rabbi Joshua ben Levi was a rabbi who was a man of the word, and he studied the Torah religiously, and he was steeped in it. And he was known, interestingly enough, for studying the Torah, the Old Testament, with those who were afflicted with an ancient disease called Ra'athan. Ra'athan was thought to be a communicable disease, very contagious. You didn't go near someone with Ra'athan. But the rabbi thought, by studying God's word, God is protecting me. And he sits side by side and he turns the pages with them. Well, one day as he's studying, the angel of death visits Rabbi Joshua ben Levi and says, your time is near. To which the rabbi says, well, may I have more time to study God's word to prepare my heart and my mind? And may I also see what the other side of paradise looks like? To which the angel said, yes. They begin on their way, and Rabbi Joshua ben Levi looks at the angel and he says, that sword you're carrying, it frightens me. May I hold it for the journey so that I'm not frightened? The angel agrees. He and the rabbi get to the fence, looking at the other side of paradise, and without any notice, the rabbi jumps over, holding the sword. The angel of death has barely a little slither hold on him. He says, you must give me my sword. You can't take it with you. And the rabbi says, no, I won't. And God speaks up and says, you must give him the sword so that he can exact his divine plan of cutting the thread of life. The rabbi agrees, gives the sword, and enters into paradise prematurely. Well, Rabbi Joshua ben Levi had a friend, another rabbi named Hanina ben Papa. Hanina ben Papa was also a rabbi, a man of the word, studied the Torah, was religious, knew it inside and out, and was proud of that. And like his friend Rabbi Joshua ben Levi, the angel of death came to him announcing the same fate. He knew what his friend Rabbi Joshua ben Levi had done, and so he made the same request. May I see the other side of paradise? Yes, you may. And may I also hold the sword, for it's frightening me. I want to hold your sword. To which the angel said, absolutely not. Well, why not? He protested. I am a man who is righteous and pious, just like Rabbi Joshua ben Levi. I have studied the Torah. I have been a student of it. I have been faithful to it. To which the angel said, ah, yes. But did you ever study the Torah knee to knee and face to face with someone suffering from the disease Ra'athan? What's the difference? One you can do in isolation. Another one requires connection, relationship. One is all about knowledge, religion, and the other one is about compassion, attentiveness, empathy, the human connection, relationship. That's why Paul, when we read this text, we read it at too many weddings, right? 1 Corinthians chapter 13. He says, if I have the gift of prophecy and I can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have the faith that can move mountains, whew, good stuff, right? Not so fast. But I do not have love. I am nothing. It doesn't count for anything. Rabbi ben Papa. You go a couple of chapters earlier in 1 Corinthians chapter 8, he says, now about food and sacrifice to idols, we know that we all possess knowledge, but this is the key part. But knowledge puffs up while love builds up. One rabbi was puffed up with his religious knowledge. Another one was building up because of his compassion, his empathy. He was seeing people and caring about people the way God sees people and cares about people. And that's our opportunity. Scott Peck, famous Christian psychiatrist, said this. He said, the principal form the work of love takes is attention. You know this to be true, don't you? When we love another person, we give him or her our attention. It's that simple, yet it's that difficult because it's hard. It's hard. And so, where are we here? I want to give you a definition for empathy that I think is really a great working definition. Empathy is loving well by giving the right kind of attention. We give all kinds of attention, don't we? Think of that subway car. Attention was being given, but not the right kind. And we do this as individuals, and here's the really good news for us as we're gathered here. We get to do this collectively as a body as well. We get to hone our empathy skills. We get to impact others, love them well, and then we can see the outcome by the way lives are transformed. And we can do with one another together what none of us could do alone. It's an amazing gift. I want to share a video with you. This is Holly DeSantis. Holly, you may know. She is often our Stephen minister at the end of our service. And Holly is showing us the impact, showing us and telling us about the outcome of our collective empathy by loving well. check out this video from Holly.
My name is Holly DeSantis, and I'm a Stephen minister here at SCC. I started coming to the church about 3 years ago when my sister-in-law, Kathy, suggested that I come and listen to the new minister. She said, I guarantee you're going to like that minister. Just give it a try. I guarantee you're going to like his thought-provoking sermons. So I thought, okay, they have an 8 o'clock service. I can be in and out by 9. I have my whole Sunday ahead of me. I'll give it a try. Well, she was right. I did like his sermons, and I did like the fact that I could get in and out by 9 o'clock. Shortly thereafter, though, I joined the Stephen Ministers, and part of our role is to pray with people after the 10 o'clock and the epic service. So one day, somebody couldn't make the epic service as a Stephen minister, and they asked me if I could fill in. So I said, sure. I don't have anything really going on that Sunday. I could do that. So I went to the service. I liked the music. The sermon was the same. And I thought, you know what, that was pretty enjoyable. But I went back to the 8 o'clock service, got out by 9, and had the whole day ahead of me. Then they asked me again. And I said, okay, I liked the music, I'll do it again. So I went again. And the second time, I had a different experience. It's then when I realized this is a very special service. It's not only the contemporary music which moves you, but it's the people standing on the stage giving their God-given gifts as they play their instruments and sing their songs. You can see the joy in their faces, and you can feel God's presence, not only on that stage, but in the room. And if you look around you, it's a very diverse crowd in that service. It doesn't look like the 8 o'clock or the 10 o'clock service. It's people from all different walks of life. And I said to myself, you know what? I belong at this service. This is the service that makes me feel that I'm in God's presence. So this year, I signed up for all the Stephen Minister assignments at the Epic service. And for 1 hour a week, as I'm standing in that dark room, amongst that diverse group of people, listening to amazing music with people, and they're showing their God-given gifts, I feel God's presence. I feel God's love. I feel like all God's children are standing in that room together as one. And now, instead of trying to get in and out so that I have a Sunday ahead of me, this is my Sunday. This is my touchstone. That service is what grounds me. It fills me up with the love of God so that I may go on for that week and feel grounded, feel loved, and feel like I am in the presence of Jesus Christ our Lord.
Can we just give God the hand for the way that is awesome? You know what Holly's reminding us of is the impact of our collective empathy, of our loving well. That we can do more collectively together than any one of us could do by ourselves. That's the opportunity. That's really what stewardship is. We're moving into our official sort of start of the stewardship campaign, and we often think about stewardship as money. You know, it's about the church wanting money, asking for money, blah, blah, blah. No. Here's a good definition of stewardship. Using all of your resources as a tool for empathy, as a tool for loving well. And we need to do that individually, but we do it in a mighty way collectively. We do it in a big way collectively, loving well by giving the right kind of attention. That's what ministry is, giving the right kind of attention to one another in our church and to our community and to our world. Of course, that requires that we resource that. You'll get this week, if you've given us your address, you should get a mailing. I just want to kind of give you a heads up. This is our sort of stewardship mailing, and we created this, and it's a letter from me, and on the cover, it kind of gives a bit of what's going on and the challenge. We figured out with the trustees that in order for us to meet our budget for 2017, what we need to do is everyone who's given anything in 2016, if you gave $3.20 more per month in 2017, we would operate smoothly and flawlessly with regard to our budget. You know what that comes down to? It comes down to 80 cents per week, or in other words, a Snickers bar per week. A Snickers bar is what we're talking about. And that's kind of the stewardship challenge for us, and you'll get this brochure, and it has some great little graphics and different things and good information that'll be helpful. But it's not, and this is why this is so important, this is not about money, it's not about fundraising. This is about impacting others, loving others well. It's our collective empathy because we see lives transform when we unite together and we let God use us. This is our opportunity as a congregation. It's our opportunity as individuals. At the end of the day, what God cares most about is not religion. What God cares most about is the quality of your relationships, your relationship with yourself, with others, and with God. And that's what we're about as a church. Communicating, that's the good news of the gospel. God redeemed us for right relationships with ourselves, others, and Him. Healthy self-awareness and awareness of others, empathy, is the path to what God cares most about. So I promise you some practical steps, and here they are. 4 things that I'm going to suggest to you, one-to-one practical skills for empathy. And some of these are no-brainers, but they're easy, but they're not easy. And here's the first one. Ask questions, be curious, and be interested in people. You ever been in a conversation with someone and they're looking past you? They're glazed over. You can tell they're somewhere else, and you kind of want to go, McFly, you're there. Be engaged. My kids, I'm often embarrassing them, and it's great fun to do that, especially when we're out somewhere in public and I'm talking to strangers, because I love to talk to people. I love to be interested in people, learn from people, learn about people, and they're like, Dad, you don't even know him. Well, now I do. Be curious, be interested with strangers, with people around you, people you easily take for granted in your life. And the next one kind of, it sort of lends itself toward this. Number 2 is make eye contact. Make eye contact with people. We often are so rushed that we don't really make eye contact with people and show them that we care. We see them. Now, I'm not talking about being a weirdo and boring a hole in people. Don't do that. Don't be googly. But there's a guy who was a salesman for Circuit City. Remember when Circuit City was in business? And he told me his little practice as a salesman. Someone would come up, stranger, to buy something. And before he would greet them, he would say to himself internally, don't say it out loud, I love you. Isn't that interesting? Why would he do that? He said, because that makes it about them. It orients me toward them and not what I can get from them. You see, that's the problem. In relationships, we're often even subconsciously oriented toward what we can get from someone, not oriented toward them. Make eye contact. And here's the big one. This is hard for us guys. And my wife is probably going to shout a large amen. Number 3 is listen without interrupting. It is hard because just like the construction worker story, we like to fix it. Oh, you don't need to finish your story. I'll tell you what you can do. Here's what you need to do and what you need to not do. And boy, we have to bite our tongues sometimes and not interrupt and not think about what we're going to say in response, but simply listen to what's being said. And then when you do speak, the 4th step is to mirror the feelings they express. Now, here's where we can often trip up. We'll get all the way to this 4th step, and someone's talking about something, and they've gone through something, and they're sharing a feeling, and what we do is say, I've been through that myself, or I felt this way when I went through that. And what has happened when we do that? Suddenly it's about us and not them. We're not being empathetic. We're turning it to ourselves. These are simple things, but they're really not easy to do. And they are invaluable. They can make or break the quality of our relationships. So, one-to-one practical skills for empathy. And here's some other things for you to consider. 4 other practical opportunities. One is this. Consider this. Volunteer with people who are very different from you. Who is it that makes you uncomfortable? Who is it you can't understand? Who is it that's just really different? It may be racial. It may be age. It may be education. It may be, vocation, whatever it might be, whether it's in the church or somewhere else. Get around people who are so different. You simply can't understand them unless you seek to stand side by side and get to know them. And the second thing is this. Befriend people who are good at empathy. Befriend people who do this well. You know who they are. Rub shoulders with them. Let them mentor you. Let them model for you what it's like to relate to people well. Seek them out. Start here in the body of Christ, but don't stop here. The third opportunity is this. Learn about yourself from others. Now, this is hard because it takes vulnerability, and you have to seek out someone you trust. Maybe a spouse, maybe a good friend, maybe a family member, and be ready for what they tell you. Learn about yourself through their eyes. Because there's always something that's hidden. Let me illustrate this with what's called the Johari window. I've shared this before. The Johari window is a very interesting thing. We're all in all four of these categories. There is what we call the known self. It's what you know about yourself and what others know. You all know I'm a pastor. I know I'm a pastor. That's the known self for me here, right? And then there's the hidden self. It's what I know about me that you don't know. And guess what? I'm not going to tell you. And then there is the unknown self, things neither of you know. So there's some things that I've yet to discover about myself, and you have yet to discover about me. And there's some mystery in us, and that's exciting. The one to pay attention to for our purposes is the bottom left, the blind self. Because the truth is, and I often don't like to admit it, there are things you see about me and know about me that I don't see, that I don't know. And there are things that I see and I know about you that you don't see and you don't know. And we need trusted friends and family members who we can say, how am I doing with this empathy thing? How am I doing with this self-awareness? How am I doing with loving well? And learn from them. That's hard. It's vulnerable. But I saved the best for the last, and this is by far the most important. Watch how Jesus is with people. Watch how Jesus is with people. Yes, he teaches us. Yes, we have God's word, but look at how he relates to people. Because the truth is, Jesus will always be your only perfect example and resource for how to love well and how to care most about what God cares about most. Amen and amen. Let's pray together.